Welcome to another episode of Hat Collecting, the multi-passionate experience. This month for July, which is Disability Pride Month, I've been doing a special mini-series with a variety of disabled friends and peers that I know and talking about their disabilities, their experiences, and what we can learn from them. I am your host, Lacey Arnholz. My pronouns are she and they. I am a white, early 40s, feminine presenting person with long brown hair, and I'm wearing black headphones and a pink shirt. And I'm joined today by my friend, who will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Victoria Urquhart. I use she, her pronouns. I am a feminine presenting person with, I am Caucasian with reddish brown hair. I'm currently wearing a sunny yellow button-down shirt with white polka dots. And I'm coming to you from my partner's living room.
Yes, I'm coming from an undisclosed location.
The mystery.
Yes. I have a set of questions that I've been asking or using as the guide rails, I guess. And sometimes we have gone in past episodes, sometimes we've gone off and I've asked other questions, but this is where we start and we see where it goes. But the first question, why we're here in the first place, what disability or disabilities, plural, do you personally experience that you would like to talk about today?
Yeah, I mean, I am AuDHD, so that's ADHD autistic. Happy to talk about that today. Also happy to talk a little bit about long COVID as a chronic illness and how we navigate spaces with that.
Excellent. Yes, we are both AuDHD, and I have been kind of following your journey through Facebook primarily of the very unfortunate experiences that you've been having with the medical system and getting various diagnoses. And we have talked, I spoke to past guest Yolanda Bunnell about accessibility and disability justice in the theater space, which is something that I also know that you have some experience with. So we could talk about each of those things. But
It's
anyways.
like the study with the double empathy problem, which I encourage everybody to look up with the way it was. I love the way it's referenced with NeuroWild, where it's like beavers talking to squirrels. And I can't remember whether it's the beavers or the squirrels that are supposed to be metaphoric for autism. But one is very aware of that there are multiple means of communication, and they try to adopt the language because they've been told this is the language you have to use. And they try to navigate through that and translate effectively to conform to being a squirrel. And it doesn't, like, the squirrels hate the beavers for trying to be squirrels. And also, if a beaver just went out and said, "Hey, I'm a beaver," the squirrels would be like, "Okay, ew, no, why? You need to talk like a squirrel." And then when they try, but then, like, the squirrels, they're not trying to change their language. They're not trying to, and this isn't necessarily everybody. And there's 50,000 ways in which to do that people don't realize the nuances that are required to help a beaver talk like a squirrel. And then, meanwhile, beavers can, like, connect with squirrels and have empathy for squirrels. And beavers can also connect with beavers and have empathy for beavers. But squirrels cannot connect with beavers and have empathy for beavers. And why is that? And a lot of that is based on what we're taught and thin slice judgments, and being taught that people who try to connect in this way without automatically knowing what what the social cues are, and without automatically knowing the culture that is here, all of a sudden deems this person inappropriate, a creep, must be someone who has experience with SA, which is a very come on, and must be mentally ill, blah, 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 like all of the things that thin slice judgments like to do. And also, how do you tell people to ignore that gut instinct, and how to, it's not even ignore the gut instinct, it's gain better specificity with your gut instinct to understand when it's someone who has a different experience of a social culture here than another person who is really, really acting predatory. I have, when I was much younger, that was an ongoing thing that I couldn't understand because I was very, very direct. When kids were shy and I was in kindergarten, I would go, "Can you talk?" So I was a very outgoing kid, and then I was taught that wasn't appropriate or allowed. And then I started to become shy because I started to get worried that I would get hurt or punished for doing what I wanted to do, and speaking in the way that I wanted to speak. And yeah, but it's interesting because also, like, with the double empathy problem, like, autistics get together and we have our own, like, we fall into our own code just by seeing each other, just by talking with each other for like 5 seconds. Whereas, we go and speak with someone who's holistic, and there's some navigation. Yeah. Another TED Talk in the can. So
I feel like you and we could easily fill hours. I'm kind of curious, like, so you're obviously still dealing with the long COVID situation. Or maybe I shouldn't say obviously, you are. I know that. I'm kind of feeling that. Okay. But I guess I'm curious because what I've experienced, less so from my own vantage point, but I've seen other friends go through it, that when you get chronically ill to a certain degree or worse, that society kind of tends to like leave you behind or push you to the side. And I know, being in theater and being an actor and being an artist, you kind of have like a, this sounds like I'm being presumptive and putting words in your mouth. I'm not trying to, but being in the theater world, you have more, I guess, I would suspect you have more regular ongoing interactions with people than a person with like a normal kind of 9 to 5 maybe. And I know the theater space has a higher preponderance of like non-normative people, I'll just say. So I'm not doing a good job of asking a question here. I guess, however you can maybe like simplify it, how is this? Are you in the process of getting back to kind of like more of a regular life like you used to have, or that you would want to have? Is that going to be, to what extent is that going to be possible, do you think? And what things maybe you think are not going to change? Sorry, that's a
no. That's a good, because I see that question applying on a level of chronic illness, and then I see that question applying on a level of AuDHD. In terms of AuDHD, there's no going back, and I don't want there to be any going back, because this gives me agency over what rooms I choose to navigate and why and how. With chronic illness, that is also true to a degree, and also my chronic illness is a dynamic disability. So some days it is very prominent, and other days it's barely there. It will consistently fluctuate, which then leads a lot of people to ask, well, then how can you be disabled? And it's like, dynamically. I'm a dynamic person. What can I say? My biology has already confounded several scientists. And also, dynamic disabilities have been around for a long time. And I encourage everybody to look it up. But yes, for my chronic illness, I'm consistently hopeful, especially currently, because my most recent healthcare visit, we were given a lot of answers, and there were a lot of options for treatment and care that actually made it seem really possible that this may not be something that I'm dealing with for the rest of my life. And that's not something that everybody hears. And I need to say that with a caveat, because also, one, everyone will become disabled eventually. That is a truth. That is actually in the Ontario Human Rights Code. That it acknowledges that we will all become disabled eventually. At least the last time I checked. I can just, someone's gonna hear this and then look it up and be like, "She's wrong." Please.
Well,
please
there's a special on Netflix right now about a guy who's trying to break that, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. But and so while there are while there's questions of, am I going to have long COVID forever? That may not necessarily be the case. But now also, as I am aging, and as I am, living with, I'm semi-reluctant to say this online, and also itself. So since I'm living with the TISM, comorbidities of that do also include things like Ehlers-Danlos. And that is something that I have scored highly on. So while I may not live with long COVID forever, it could create complications for a potential Ehlers-Danlos diagnosis, which is something that's, in consideration with everything right now as well. Will that mean that I am living life the same way as I'm living with long COVID in the future? Not necessarily. There's way too many variables up in the air with that. And what I'm finding now with living with this is that there are a lot more ways that I can be taking care of myself that are not even known to, oftentimes, the public healthcare system. Regardless of whether someone believes in a naturopath or not, I highly encourage people to go and talk with a naturopath and set up a session or two, just to gain a sense of their perspective, and look up the stuff that they're talking about, because and really just test out some things for themselves. There's another motorcycle driving by, I think. could be very slow. No? Just,
Ignore the peanut gallery.
yeah. Okay. Um, but, and I think this is power of perspective. This is power of being autistic and everything all at once again is, we need to, especially when taking care of ourselves and especially when engaging healthcare and considering options that we don't even know we have, look at, like, talk to all of the people involved in all of the different approaches, and you may believe that it's woo woo, not real, and all of the things. That's fine. You should still hear it, because you never know when that's going to save you. And no, I'm not saying like suddenly, changing your religion and getting involved in ritual, like however you choose to worship and recharge and live spiritually. That, like, if spirituality intersects with healthcare for you, great. And if it doesn't, great. Like, but it's so important to engage and learn what is out there, because that will provide you so much benefit in the most unlikely of circumstances. For myself, currently, I did engage a naturopath that at the time I was like, there's no, like, this is what? And then I learned about lymphatic drainage and how that can actually affect brain fog, and how that can, help you neurologically, as well as, they actually didn't suggest this, but it's starting to become more prominent for me, especially in the hot weather. Starting my day putting salt under my tongue, to balance out my electrolytes and also kind of jumpstart my system in the morning. The latter is not as scientifically proven, and they're still doing studies on that. But in terms of maintaining my electrolytes, because my electrolytes have been all over the place, that's really important for me, because I lose a lot of electrolytes through the day, and I can't just drink water. And I'm not going to go and drink some lemon water concoction for me, because also the taste of water is, I can get very sensory avoidant with that very quickly. There's so many ways that we can take care of ourselves that we won't know until we engage in research, we engage in talking to various different people with various different perspectives. That is research too. The best one that I actually found so far was this, in terms of engaging your parasympathetic nervous system, because I think I've engaged too much of my sympathetic, or the reverse, sorry. I've engaged too much of my parasympathetic nervous system because I'm very low blood pressure, and I should be engaging more of my sympathetic nervous system without just giving myself a bunch of trauma. So something, and there are a lot of studies that are being explored on this right now. Whether it's 100% true or not, we don't know. And also the exercise that I do in the morning to support this, it doesn't hurt me. It's a simple breathing exercise that in theory could help me get rid of lactic acid at the beginning of the day, because that's the studies that they're finding now with long COVID in terms of metabolism and whatnot. And if it's not true, great. I just did a breathing exercise that's probably going to help me as an actor later on. If it is true, I'm expelling lactic acid. Who knows? Like, I will conclude this last TED Talk with not last, but you know what I mean. This latest one. There we go. Words. With I read a really wonderful book called Unthinkable, and I say it's wonderful because it comes with so many different perspectives. This journalist has specifically sought so many different perspectives, and I don't agree with all of them. And I love that I don't agree with all of them. And one of the things that they talk about in a chapter is that, aside from the fact that we've moved away from science in different ways as a truth telling system, and we need to move back to that, but we need to move back to that with the right framework. And it's not that the science is incorrect; it's that our interpretation of it can frequently be incorrect. And we need to make space for there to be mistakes for how we interpret that science. And if we can hold space for that, that means that we can respond faster in an emergency scenario like with COVID and like with the pandemic. There were communities that benefited so much from having someone, a scientist or a researcher in the community, just consistently updating them on what practices were considered safe and what were not, because there was space held for the fact that, okay, this is what the latest science says, and then knowing that it may not necessarily be true later. We're still learning. We're still figuring out all of it. Like, we don't know how to cure COVID yet. I mean, we know how to cure it in like the immediate sort of, kind of. We don't know what long COVID does, and we don't know how to cure long COVID. The studies that are going on right now, we just like, folks were talking about biomarkers before, and now they're speaking with much more certainty about the biomarkers outlining long COVID, which then leads to, you know, a lot more information about how you might be able to cure different expressions of it, depending on various different factors. That's me speaking very hopefully, and I also acknowledge that I am such an optimist, and I need to be. I'm living with this.
The world needs more optimists. I'm gonna say something kind of self-serving here, and to the audience. I'm saying that to the audience. You're my friend, and you're one of the things I just love so much about you. I've only known you for a few months, but I genuinely love how thoughtful you are, and I know a lot of my other autistic friends are like this. And if you find the right topics, like, I literally could just sit and listen to you for hours, which is why we need to hang out more.
Agreed.
But yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to say in response, but I try to keep these episodes focused more on the guest, especially when we go a bit longer. I think with the length, I wanted to give you space and time to speak here, but I think what I'm going to actually do with this one, because we kind of did like 3 individual chunks. So as much as I don't normally edit this show, I think that it's going to make sense for this one to maybe like turn it into 3, like part 1, 2, 3, and do that. I could also put it out as the whole thing as well, but I just think that might make it a little easier for people to engage with.
I could talk for hours, and I could talk for hours about nothing. So, like, feel free to edit and feel free to, yeah, that's totally okay.
I like, it's one of those things, like, there's some people that I know where I'm like, I literally just want to do like a weekly show with you and just like talk to you about stuff, because like, and I'm like this too, like, I'm the one doing the interviewing, and I don't feel comfortable just doing like a monologue podcast by myself. I'm a lot better when I have someone to like kind of bounce off of. Except, you know, if I'm going up on stage and just delivering information, it's a little bit different. But I like, yeah, it's, it's one of those special things. Like not all autistic people kind of do this, but the one quick thing that I will say is like you were talking about all the like doing all your own research with the medical stuff, and I have a couple of other friends who've had to go down that road as well. And I remember when I read Tim Ferriss's book, I think it was 4 Hour Body. It's from years back, and he wrote about these different, like he paid out of his own pocket to get a bunch of different testing done so that he could understand himself better, like physiologically. And he like, talked about like, you know, slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fibers and stuff. And like, even though I'm an artist and I'm very creative and I like to like make things, I have always had an interest in like science and how stuff works. And I just didn't go down that path. My sister did. She's got a master's in microbiology. And
Whoa.
yeah. And I was the one that didn't even get a master's in, you know, art because you don't really, I mean, yeah. But I've always been interested in that stuff. And so I like, when you're talking about that stuff, I'm like, if it was easier, like I could just go to my doctor and be like, I'd like to get this test done. And then I'd like to sit down with someone and have them explain this to me so that I can understand it, because I want to understand this stuff. I want to be able to, like, I mean, the problem is like I'm a hypochondriac and I do have a tendency to like, you know, skies falling, you know, no, I have friends thankfully who can help rein me in with that. But it's like, I do want to understand myself better, like mentally, emotionally, identity wise, physically, like everything. And I'm endlessly curious and I love learning and I love sharing what I learn. So when I get to talk to somebody like you're not necessarily like an expert, but you're thoughtful and you're curious and you've done research and you're presenting your experience and you're presenting what you've learned. And I just, I'm so happy that I know people like this, and this is part of what I love about this show, is that I get to have these conversations and share this information, and hopefully it helps somebody, even if just me. So, with all that said, you've got your show I Can Fly. I'm not sure if you can talk about like when that might be ready for public consumption, or if there's anything else that you want to promote right now. But
yeah, I mean, it's in development right now. Theaters, get at me. No, it's in development, and I've been having talks here and there with folks about it. Wow. Blah, blah, blah. And I see now all the ADHD.
Do you live next to a raceway?
Apparently. Yeah. I'm also like I'm writing a bunch of things all the time. I'm performing a bunch of things all the time. And theaters, get at me. TV shows, get at me. Just, you know, plug. And I'm trying to think of all of the things that are next, and I can't think of anything, of course. But folks can reach out at on my Instagram, G_NITENET. That's G_NightNet.
That link will be in the description. So
cool. And yeah, my autism has presented in a way that I just never, I've the social trauma hit me in the good way, where or at least I have healed from the social trauma to that's a much better way of putting it, to assume that a lot of the time my view of the world is not the view of the world. I don't assume that my direct the way that I take in the world and the way that I move through the world isn't And I'm consistently reminded that it isn't the way that everybody moves through the world. And in some cases, that means contextualizing as like, hey, I know I'm a weirdo, but, and other times it's, oh, this person just must not know. Okay, that's okay. Like they could have come from 50 different places or experiences so that they just don't know this thing. I'm not going to assume that they're dumb. Um, and yeah, largely because when I was growing up, a lot of people assumed that I was dumb. And that in and of itself is a very ableist phrase that I try to take out. Yeah. So thank you for seeing that in me, and also just thank you for the time, the space. This is really wonderful, and I'm glad that I could be part of it. And I hope there's like all more for you.
No, seriously, I could do like a weekly show with you, and I don't think we'd ever run out of things to talk about. It's like,
Agreed.
hey, so what's going on in your life this week? That's, just an endless.
Love it. Love it.
Because I'm also not more so. I'm spending less so spending my time learning about medical stuff for my sake of my health as I'm learning about whole new industries and things like aspects of like being self-employed that I haven't really come up against before, and like I'm learning a lot of stuff on the fly, which is cool, but also can be tiring and overwhelming sometimes. So this is kind of where it gets to be a mixture of fun and educational.
Well, don't take all of what I say as rude. I consistently say like everybody look up stuff. Don't take everything I say as this is.
Well,
the
that's
way
why I said you're sharing
science
your
is.
experiences and things that you have learned, and that's not saying that those are facts. That's just, you're presenting information. And I think you're very clear about being, like second opinions and whatever, spirituality works for you. Like you weren't like proselytizing anything. So, at least I don't think so. But that said, yeah, so with that, that's wonderful. I think, as I've been thinking about it, I think it does make a lot of sense to put this into 3 parts. And I will just very quickly, I know I alluded to it, that I created my own company that is not really doing much right now because it's summertime, and summertime's just not really a good time for independent events. But Party Mix Events is the current name of my thing. The tagline was playful, creative connection for grown-ups, but it's kind of evolving now to be kind of more like playful, creative, accessible, inclusive connection for grown-ups. So that's a mouthful. And yeah, I also am kind of getting into kind of a bit of coaching and like consulting. But that's still taking shape. So right now, that's kind of the main thing. But my website is LaceyArtemis.com. I am at LaceyArtemis on all the social media platforms that I'm on, except for Twitter/X, because I'm not. I mean, I still have an account there, but it's retired. I'm not going back for some what I think are obvious reasons. But yeah, that all said, thank you again for tuning in, for listening. I hope that you learned something, and I'm always bad at the endings of these. So until next time, this has been Hat Collecting, the Disability Experience with Victoria Urquhart, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.